Welcome, everyone. For those of you new to our organization, I'm Mary Woolley, Research America's President and CEO. Thank you so much for joining us today for our 2022 annual meeting of members. You, our members, are the heart of what we do. We value your partnership every day of the year. To kick off our annual meeting, it's my pleasure to introduce our board chair, Susan Dentzer. Chair Dentzer previously served as the Senior Policy Fellow for the Robert J. Margolis Center for Health Policy at Duke University, and now is the President and CEO of America's Physician Groups. Over to you, Susan, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I add to your words, our welcome to the membership and our appreciation for your very, very important participation in this alliance. I became chair of Research America just about a year ago at this time, having been elected to that position by our board, but I've served on the board of Research America since 2010. I have to say, every year of my involvement with Research America has been remarkable in its own way, but needless to say, on a scale of maximum remarkability, say 0 to 10, the last 2 years have been at a 10. They've been remarkable for many reasons, and you'll hear more about those highlights from Mary in a few moments. But I would say that for me, one of the most remarkable features as we have wended our way as a country and as a world through the pandemic has been the amazing pace of virtual sessions that the Research America Membership Alliance has managed to maintain to continue to connect us and inform all of us on the issues so close to our hearts. If you think about it, the sessions that we've had on issues as diverse as the latest funding and policy developments in Congress, hearing regularly from Hill staffers and members of Congress and agency leaders about their priority issues, having sessions on understanding the Prescription Drug User Fee Act reauthorization, the creation of ARPA-H, insights on combating COVID-19 and preparation for what we all, of course, understand will be inevitably the next pandemic. And then, very importantly, combating misinformation and disinformation in science. All of these sessions have really been extraordinary and very helpful in keeping all of us connected and focused on the many issues that inform the work of our alliance. There will be much more to come in the months ahead, so please keep sending us your suggestions for topics that will be most informative and relevant for you. When I took on the role of board chair last year, the board collectively thought that we needed to do what all great organizations should do periodically, which is to go back to their roots, think carefully about their mission and their vision, take into account the changing national and global context, and then adapt all of that to a rejuvenated strategic vision and a path forward for the organization. So that is precisely what our board has done over the past years. And among other activities we've undertaken as we got ready for this process was a survey that we sent to you as members, and we thank all of you who participated and returned that survey to us a few months ago. In a series of conversations that we had as a board and that culminated in a board retreat that we had in Washington in December, in that tiny little window before Omicron hit, many of us were actually able to gather together in person to talk about that issue. And we created a plan that focused our activities in 6 key areas as an organization. Number 1, increasing US funding and policy support for science, technology, and innovation to improve societal health. Number 2 area, contributing meaningfully to building a culture of trust in and support for science. Number 3, promoting new and frankly underutilized health research disciplines and innovations in research. Number 4, increasing Research America's influence and visibility. Number 5, delivering value to Research America Alliance members beyond your collective expectations. And number 6, bolstering Research America's capacity to further our mission by continuing to grow our resources. Now, I emphasize these are not sequential. We're going to do one and then later get to number 5, delivering value to you. We're going to try to do all of this all at once. And consistent with that, we've created a series of objectives under each of those key research categories and key results that we're going to use to hold ourselves accountable for meeting them, and also, frankly, to stretch our goals and raise our sights so we can really push the envelope and see what more we can accomplish in each of these domains. Our discussions are going to continue over the next few months, and we very much look forward to unveiling the high-level report out on our strategic visioning process later this year. And we will look forward to your comments and your reflections as we do. I will conclude my very brief greetings by conveying the board's deep appreciation and gratitude, first of all, to Mary Woolley, to the rest of the Research America team, and personally by thanking my fellow board members for their diligent work and the breadth of their contributions, as well as for their support of me as chair. And now I have the great pleasure of turning this virtual podium over to, I believe we're going to be joined by Governor Mike Castle, the immediate past chair of Research America. I know he was having a little bit of connection difficulties, so we may be turning to another one of our members to conduct this next portion of our session. But over to you on the virtual podium, my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, are you there? Well, if not, I'm better up. My name is Bart Gordon. I am I'm the vice chair of Research America board. And so let me say good afternoon to everyone. I'm also the incoming chairman of the nominating committee, and it's my pleasure to present the slate of nominees for election to Research America's board of directors. With members present and proxies submitted, a quorum for this annual meeting has been established. On behalf of the nominating committee, I'm pleased to present the following slate in the form of a motion to elect these individuals to serve as Research America's board of directors. For re-election to a 3-year term, the Honorable Rush Hope, U.S. Member of Congress from 1999 to 2015. New board members for election to a 3-year term, Dr. Amin El Mohammed, the Dean of City University, New York Graduate School, Public Health and Health Policy, Dr. Mary Pittman, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Public Health Institute, Dr. Elias Zerhini, the former director of the National Institute of Health. In order to balance term rotation, we are proposing re-election to 1-year terms, several current members. They are Dr. George Benjamin, who is the Executive Director of the American Public Health Association, Dr. Victor Zhao, the President, National Academies of Medicine, Dr. Mark McClellan, the Director of Robert J. Margolis Center for Public Health at Duke University, Dr. Herb Pardas, the Executive Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the New York Presbyterian Hospital, and Amy Comstock Rick, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Food and Drug Law Institute. At this time, please register your vote through the online poll you now see on the screen to act on this motion to adopt the slate of directors as presented. So I need to do the same. And I don't know with other people having the problem, but when I click on, it's not taking it.
That's okay, Bart. We'll handle that. So
We'll work it out. Okay. So, Mike, do you want to report?
Yes, Congressman Gordon, we do have our results here, and we have more than a quorum has responded affirmatively.
Okay, by the votes cast here today and proxies received, the slate of directors is approved. We are delighted to welcome this class of directors, and now it's my pleasure to introduce Research America Corporate Secretary, Dr. Al Reese, who will introduce the resolution of appreciation for outgoing members or directors and introduce our guest speaker. Dr. Reese.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you so much. As many of you know, Research America has long been well served by an outstanding board of directors, some of whom are on the screen. This is a vital part of the organization's ongoing success. Today, we elected several new board members, and at the same time, we're saying goodbye and thank you to board members whose terms have come to a close. It is my honor to include the following resolution of appreciation into today's proceedings, meeting to share our gratitude to these individuals. This resolution of thanks and appreciation reads as follows. Whereas the following individuals will be ending their respective terms of service as Research America board members today: Tenley Albright, MD, William Haidt, MD, PhD, James Madara, MD, Larry Shapiro, MD. Whereas each is recognized for their unwavering advocacy for research and science to achieve better health for all. Whereas because of their leadership and service, Research America is a stronger and more effective organization. Therefore, on this 21st day of April, 2022, the members of Research America thank each of these individuals for their outstanding service to the organization and wish each of them the very best. Thank you, Tenley, Bill, Jim, and Larry, for the pleasure of serving with you on the Research America board. You will be missed. Thank you so much. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Al, I believe we now will be introducing Senator Blunt and Bart Gordon to conduct their fantastic fireside chat and conversation.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Happy to do that. Now, as part of our annual meeting program today, we are incredibly pleased, indeed privileged, to be joined by Senator Roy Blunt, the senior senator from Missouri and a proud fifth-generation Missourian. Joining Senator Blunt in conversation is our own Research America Vice Chair, former Congressman Bart Gordon, who has served in Congress representing the 6th District of Tennessee for more than 2 decades. Senator Blunt, thank you for being with us today. Bart, I'm pleased to turn the program over to you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Let's see, Roy, are you with us? I don't see your, say hello if you're here with. Hello? Well, as we wait for Roy, let me give him a little more of an introduction. I had the good fortune to serve with Roy from 1996 to 2010 in the House before he defected to the Senate. He is now serving his last term in the Senate, and he serves as ranking member of the very important Senate Appropriation Committee called Labor H, which is Labor, Health, Human Services, Education, and related agencies. That's a mouthful, but it also is a big checkbook. Roy really has the jurisdiction over some of the most important agencies in our government, things like NIH, CDC, BARDA, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and other health agencies and programs. So Roy, are you with us yet? Okay. Well, would you like to move along, Mary, to maybe the next portion, and then we'll bring in Roy when he gets here?
Sounds good, and I hope y'all can hear me. I will get the word, these virtual meetings where there's a lot of different moving parts are sometimes very challenging. But when I get the word that the senator has joined us, I'll just put my remarks on hold and we'll get back to him later. So thank you in advance for everybody's flexibility. So it's my pleasure to just say a few words about what we've done with you, our members, over the past year and some challenges ahead. You can read more about our year 2021 in our annual report, which you can access on our website. Be assured that our #1 priority, being advocates for the funding and the policies that allow research to thrive, is job one, and it always will be. On the next slide, you will see that special things that happened last year outside our tried and true, always moving forward in the moment advocacy, we were able to, with the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we were able to launch a new initiative around global health R&D, something that we've long worked on, but now have additional support for. It's a key objective here to ensure that this country of ours and globally doesn't take a wait and see approach to what might happen in a next pandemic. Given all of the lives lost and the enormous economic toll of COVID-19, we just can't let this happen ever again. In the interest of time, I'm not going to detail more on that program, but as with all of our activities, we encourage your questions, suggestions, and engagement. Now, last year was also the first year that we hosted an early career summit for young scientists who are going to be our future. They will be serving the public's interest in finding solutions to what ails us going forward. And we've been fortunate with this Career Summit and its fine sponsorship to offer those individuals the opportunity to learn more about communications and advocacy and to network with people who are committed to their future. Watch for this second annual Early Career Summit on June 15th and encourage people to sign up. It's no cost to those joining us. And the third highlight I wanted to mention is the magnificent generosity of Johnson & Johnson, a founding member of the Research America Alliance, who gifted us with an endowment this past year to enable us to support a whole new category of advocacy awards for outstanding achievement in public health. And the next slide. We did issue a couple of special reports last year, in addition to our regular fact sheets and so much more that we share with our members and more broadly. The first, entitled Then, Now, and Imagine, provides an overview of the role of R&D in progress against 60 health threats around the globe. The second, which we release regularly, not always annually, details investment in the United States on medical and health research. In this case, we show over a period of time of the very strong growth in R&D led by, number one, the private sector and then the federal government. Now, our goal, as it is yours, I'm sure, is that this growth continues. But we are entering a year where there is a threat to that growth, especially via the federal government. And we're on it, and we ask you to join us in advocacy to assure that this incredible growth continues. We need it. The next slide. For several years now, we've been conducting a highly attended, very well received forum. This last year was in September, as it will be this coming September. We had some special guests, and they included people who are pictured here and many more, including elected officials, speaking of whom I'm told that Senator Blunt has joined us. So I'm going to put my report on pause, and we'll take the time to listen carefully to what this extraordinary champion of research has to share with us. Back to you, Bart and the Senator.
So, Senator, are you there?
I am here. Can you see me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you. That's a good start.
My video.
Senators have to have a lot of staff, so
We do have to have a lot of staff.
we'll let them work on it. While you're doing that, I'll tell you, you were introduced a little earlier. It was mostly favorable. I will I will add one more piece to that, and that is that most folks come or elected to Congress or to the Senate and think they're destined for leadership. Few are. Roy Blunt is an exception from literally the first, almost day that there he is. Thank you, staff.
My assistant, Abby Blunt, was here to get me started.
Oh, okay. So from the, goodness sakes, don't let her hear me say that.
Mhm.
So from almost the first day that Roy got here, he has been a member of the leadership, both in the House and then when he was elected to the Senate. Really pretty extraordinary. And so the practical matter is, for the last 25 years, Roy has been in the room when almost every major decision in Congress has been made. And let me tell you, that is an itty bitty room. So we're not going to ask him to tell secrets today. When the book comes out in a few years, you can get it and hear some juicy stuff. But today we want to talk about the present. And Roy, you just got through passing the FY22 appropriation, which had the 7th consecutive increase in funding for NIH under your subcommittee. So tell us why you think NIH funding is so important.
Well, Bart, thanks, and thanks for your nice comments. If there is a book, I'll have you do part of the promo on. Should get that book, but the book's out in the distance somewhere if there's going to be one. Right now, I'm trying to take advantage of every day I have left in the Senate, which is about 8 months or so, and look forward to continuing to advocate for issues that I've been particularly involved in the last several years. Obviously, NIH, one of those. When I started chairing the committee that funds NIH, I've been on the appropriations committee all the time I was in the Senate, but I hadn't been on that subcommittee before. And I went from not being a member of that subcommittee to being the chairman. I think one of the reasons is from our side, from the Republican side, the Labor, Health and Human Services Education Subcommittee always appears to have the most challenges to deal with. And I didn't find it that way at all. There are clearly challenges there, but I think we've such an important moment at advancing healthcare and healthcare research. So many things are happening. They're happening so quickly. You and I, as House members, got to be part of doubling NIH funding in the late 90s and the very first years of the 2000s. And then there was no increase at all for about a dozen years. And what we've done in the last 7 years is we've exceeded that doubling amount that you and I were part of almost 2 decades ago by adding about $16 billion to NIH funding. It's 51% higher than it was 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, there were 2 big problems our friends at NIH were very concerned about. One is the buying power of the NIH dollar that hadn't increased in 12 years was they thought about 22% lower than it had been 12 years earlier. So in effect, a 22% cut. And 2 was that the younger researchers were not successfully getting grants. There were fewer grants all the time because of that inflationary factor, and they were going to people that had had grants before. And so at a time when people were beginning to talk about, and I mean beginning to talk about just 7 years ago, immunotherapy, the idea that CRISPR technology was out there, all kinds of other discussions, obviously about Alzheimer's and the growing challenge of Alzheimer's. It's been a great time to be part of that discussion and see that increase occur. And we're going to try to do that one more time. I hope we can get one more budget done this year while I'm still in the Senate. And while the president didn't propose any increase for NIH research, he did make a big proposal for the idea of having a defense research agency like DARPA, having something like that in healthcare. So they're calling it ARPA-H. I'm for that. And I think we learned some lessons maybe during COVID that could really apply an intense effort on one topic that is an all-out effort to get something done. But I don't think we should let that get in the way of our continued growth of the broad research effort at NIH. A lot of times you find a solution where you're not looking for it, but for that to happen, you've got to have a broad view of the kind of research you can do. And while we've specified some increased amounts, I've really tried hard to not be overly prescriptive so that NIH could go where the greatest opportunities were at the time. And that might be microbial. It might be something that nobody was talking about 10 years ago, but could be a place to solve a problem that you don't expect to find the solution there.
Well, at the first of your comments, you mentioned how a lot of the success of those increases was because of the bipartisan support. You know, we all know it's becoming, unfortunately, a more polarizing country, which then makes it a more polarizing Congress. So can you keep up that bipartisanship to move forward on healthcare?
Well, I hope so. I think we should be able to do that. When I started as chairman of the committee, and now I'm not the chairman, I'm the top Republican on an evenly divided committee. Tom Cole was the chairman of the House committee, and Rosa DeLauro was the ranking member. Now, not only the chairman of that subcommittee, but also the chairman of the full committee in the House. And Patty Murray has been my partner in this effort on our side of the building. And, you know, I've said on occasion that it's not that the Democrats and Republicans have different priorities here, but I will make the point that they have so many more priorities than we do. And this is, I say that good naturedly to Chairman DeLauro and Chairman Murray often. It's not that you're against increasing this, but you want to increase other things as well. So I think NIH has generally done a little better. Maybe it's something that more Republicans are willing to vote for than they are for other things in that bill, but it needs to be bipartisan. It has been bipartisan. I think all four of us have appreciated the recognition that not only we've gotten, but that we've been able to give each other in the effort to move forward at such an opportune time. You know, I mentioned immunotherapy 7 years ago, maybe a little more than 7 years ago now. Senator Toomey came to me and said, you know, there's some research project at the University of Pennsylvania at Philadelphia. I don't quite understand what they're doing, but I'm told that you need to go and look at it. And so Pat and I went up. Dr. Carl June was working with 70 plus people on what's now widely understood immunotherapy. I think they were looking at leukemia specifically at the time, but from a 10-year-old girl to a 70-year-old man, everybody was having incredible results as they went through this process of amping up their own ability to fight back. Now that's on the checklist on every one of the blood cancers, and I think going to be more and more looked at as the way that that T cell therapy, the therapy that a decade ago wasn't available to people who have cancer, now is one of the things you look at first, and that's just within a decade. I think not only seeing changes here, but we're seeing them at an exponential pace. And you know, whether it's looking at how you alter genetic structures so that a disease you're presupposed to have never occurs because you found out there was a possibility and you eliminated that possibility in a positive way. I think it's an exciting time. Certainly Research America has been a great advocate for all of these research issues and trying to make the case to members of Congress and others of how important it is that we have research understanding that it's not all going to be successful. In fact, more often than not, the goal of developing a new drug or a research doesn't get you quite where you want to go. But when it does get you there, it impacts tens of millions of people.
And you also learn things when something doesn't work out, you know, that could be a dead end. Well, clearly you have dug into your jurisdiction. You've schooled yourself very well. So as you look over the horizon, what do you see as the most important health issue?
Well, I think, you know, in terms of the issues that people are more increasingly concerned about, for years, the polling question, which disease are you most afraid of, has always been, and I think still is, cancer. But right up there with cancer is Alzheimer's. And, you know, as people live longer and more families see the impact of that disease and the cost of that disease, to the impact on caregivers, the impact on people who care about you may be in most cases greater than the impact on the individual that has that. So we've increased by 5 times in 7 years the amount of Alzheimer's research. But we've also increased the other categories. I'm going to have Ned Sharpless, who's leaving as the head of the Cancer Institute, come in and have sort of an exit meeting with as many of my Senate colleagues as want to be there next week to talk about what he's seen and what he thinks we ought to be focused on. But the lessons we learned from COVID about what happens when you really get focused on testing, what happens when you make a different kind of commitment to vaccines, that kind of greater locked in partnership of the government and a specific research goal. I think the president's idea there is on track, and how we put that together is going to really matter. We don't want to put it together in a way that harms NIH or even replicates the NIH model, but builds on the NIH experience to have a different opportunity to bring people in and to become part of a team for a short period of time with a specific goal and see what it takes to get there, just like we've done in defense since basically the late 1950s.
And energy. Don't forget ARPA-E.
And energy, exactly. ARPA-E, which you talked about. And this would be sort of another pattern of that.
Next step. Well, you know, Abby told us the other day that days are long and years are short. And so you've had a lot of intense days, but I'm sure those last 25 years is just zipped by. So, you know, tell us something wise. What have you learned? What's your observations? What have you enjoyed? And when you think about those 25 very successful years.
Well, I've loved it. I've worked pretty hard, but at the same time, I don't feel like I've ever actually gone to work. I've had the great advantage of having an opportunity to show up every day and see how much I could get done. And then the ability to see that happen. I don't have many observations as I look back. I would say one thing I've thought, Bart, over time is, as you've seen people have plans, political plans and other plans, big things will happen that you don't expect. And they'll be consequential, and they'll change the direction of a country or a research effort. We didn't expect COVID. We didn't expect to see a vaccine developed in 9 months. We're still trying to understand all the things about that disease that came, but generally in life and legislating, you know, make the most of the moment and be willing to understand when there's something out there you didn't anticipate happening, and see if you can also use that in a way that gets you further down the road toward a goal than you otherwise would be. And you and I both seen people have these intricate career plans that just never seem to quite work out because somebody else's life didn't agree with where they wanted to be. And I've loved doing it. I feel really honored to do it. I was honored by recognition from Research America last year and 7 years ago. And I'm glad that we've headed this important thing, this important ship in the right direction. And I'm willing to do what I can, both while I'm in the Senate and when I'm out of the Senate, to continue to be a partner with you and others in this effort.
Well, you certainly have lived by your recommendations. You have taken advantage of those opportunities along the way. You've made a mark. You can feel that those 25 years were very successful, and we look forward to 2 more, also very successful years. And so thank you for joining us today.
Well, I think it's down to about 8 months actually now, but
Oh, it is, yeah.
Time goes quicker than you think.
Abby was right.
The most of it, and I really do hope and think we have a chance to get one more appropriations bill done. I know Senator Leahy, who's leaving, and Senator Shelby, who are leaving, would both like to do that. I think both of the incoming Senate leaders, Senator Murray and Senator Collins, will be in one of those 2 jobs, either the chairman or the ranking member. They'd both like to see us get our work done this year and let them start with a clean slate next year. And I hope we can do that. And I hope I can be an active part of that.
I think you will, and I think Labor H is in good hands.
Thank you. I've loved doing it. What a great opportunity for me to not only have not been on the committee before, but get to step in and see so many things happen in a relatively short period of time.
Thank you.
You bet. Great to be with all of you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you, Congressman. What a super, super duper conversation. And Senator, you're exactly the right kind of rare individual who we would all like to see have their name on a building at NIH. And I'm here to tell you that that is going to happen. The Congress has agreed, and we will all be joining in the celebration. Senator Blunt has been extraordinary and will continue to be in these 8 months and beyond, as you've just heard him say, will be in the vanguard of leadership for meeting the moment and making the most of it as a true champion for medical and health research. Thank you, Senator, so very much. So I, with the help of my team here, I will return to my report to you, our members, on what we've been doing on your behalf and with you every step of the way. Programs like our forum and others have been in the news, which is an important part of creating a surround sound, if you will, for research and its value in this nation and its importance as a top priority. In addition to what you see here, we've been very active on social media. I hope you've been part of that. Our next slide. We're very excited about our Microgrant program, where we give small grants, importantly, all around the country, to outstanding groups of students, usually postgraduate, who are working on civic engagement. And because we have this generous support from the Rita Allen Foundation, we are now in our 3rd year of these programs. And we're learning a lot from the spectacular students who are putting their brains to work, not only in science, but in engaging with the public. Stay tuned for an announcement of a new round of these programs that will happen in the fall, we hope. And the next slide. We're now 2 years into accomplishing the goals, the very big and bold goals of the Science and Technology Action Plan, which is about the broad science effort. We recently had a month-long advertising campaign focused on reaching elected officials and those who influence them, and of course their staff, and everyone in the, if you will, Beltway area. I urge you to learn more about this effort. It's so important that the United States be competitive by drawing on the resources of our own nation, and that very much includes young scientists and those who would like to be, that we need to do a better job encouraging to join in the STEM endeavor. But it also involves leadership and coordination. So learn more at the website indicated here, the Science Tech Action. And the next slide. Speaking of world leadership, we know from one of the questions in our recently commissioned public opinion survey that the American public is solidly behind achieving global competitiveness. And the percent of spending of GDP on accomplishing that goal is an important indicator. I urge you to learn more about this and other questions that are featured in our poll data summary. We've been commissioning polls for over 30 years and packaging them, if you will, in this summary form for the last 22 years. Check out our website for more. I mentioned earlier that Johnson & Johnson has now endowed a suite of awards that recognize outstanding public health. And that means advocacy for public health, as well as being a leader in its conduct and in research. So as part of our March 16th program, just a little over a month ago, we were able to recognize these individuals and one initiative, the Accelerating COVID Therapeutics program, or ACTIVE. And we had the very spirited performance by the Young People's Chorus of New York, and the program included strong proponents of research in the Congress, as well as other strong friends of research. On the next slide, you can see our additional awardees. And some of these awards, thanks to the generosity of their benefactors, it's been possible for us to award them for several years now. And we salute all of these individuals and encourage you to think about nominating folks for next year's awards. Look for that to come out, that call for nominations to come out right around the 1st of June. Slide. I want to conclude my presentation today by thanking my fantastic colleagues. The individuals whose names you see here want to get to know you, and we hope to have that chance as we work together and with you in the months and years to come. Thank you so much, and also thank you to our wonderful board of directors. Now, it's my privilege at this point to introduce Janet Church, the president and CEO of the Sjogren's Foundation, whose mission is to create a community where patients, healthcare professionals, and researchers come together to conquer the complexities of Sjogren's. I won't spoil Janet's story in my introduction, but let me just say, Janet, you have shown a deep commitment to patient advocacy and to supporting medical research for many years. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you for the invitation. I am absolutely thrilled to speak about Sjogren's and the importance of the patient voice. I am the CEO of the Sjogren's Foundation, but more importantly, I am a Sjogren's patient. And today I've been asked to tell you a bit of my own journey from illness to patient advocate to CEO and highlight the importance of the patient voice in research and advocacy. But before I jump into my story, I'm going to shed some light on the disease. Sjogren's is a systemic autoimmune disease that can impact each patient differently. And the hallmark signs of the disease are dry eyes, dry mouth, and profound fatigue and brain fog. But many patients also suffer from neuropathies, joint and muscle pain, and organ involvement. We not only fight our disease, but we fight an extreme lack of knowledge and indifference from doctors who are supposed to offer support, validation, and help make us feel better. Sjogren's has been historically known in the medical field as an inconvenient dry eye and dry mouth disease that is somewhat rare and only affects older women. With that information, I'm going to turn now to my story. My journey for a diagnosis began in 1999 when I kept having severe sinus infections and terrible fatigue. And I was told that I was burned out from my job, which was actually a very reasonable explanation given I worked in the tech sector for 20 years. and that I just needed some sinus surgery to clear nasal passages. And I did do this, but I did not improve, and I was still exhausted, and so exhausted that I could not continue with my work as a CEO, and I had to sell off my company. I then moved to Palm Desert to relax in the sun, and I felt much better in sunshine because I moved from Seattle, but was still exhausted and developed increased thirst and headaches. And I continued to look for help and was told I was still resting from the burnout and I was approaching perimenopause, which could add to the dryness. A year later, I had severe issues and blinding headaches, and I could barely get out of bed or eat. I lost 20 pounds rapidly, and I spent 4 weeks in the hospital having absolutely every kind of test, and the only thing they found was aseptic meningitis and DVTs. And finally, I stopped throwing up, and after I received a couple of pints of blood, I went home to recuperate. I had no diagnosis. At home, I continued to sleep most of the day and eventually built my strength enough and began to walk a bit. So it took me 9 more months of seeking out diagnosis before finally receiving one from a visiting diagnostician from the Mayo Clinic. And the doctor didn't run any additional tests, but simply read my 4-inch thick medical records and said, it must be an autoimmune disease. A rheumatologist is the only specialist you have not seen. So I got myself to a room who gave me steroids, which truly are a miracle when you need them. And then I finally received a diagnosis of Sjogren's. I was put on hydroxychloroquine and was told, now the best you can do is go on with your life and manage your dryness symptoms with over-the-counter products. I had just encountered a doctor who believed that Sjogren's is a nuisance disease. This is where I thought, you have got to be kidding me. It took me 4 active years to get a diagnosis and for a disease that caused so much damage to my life. And this cannot be the only answer. This is much more than a nuisance. And the only place I could turn to was the Sjogren's Foundation. I started my education there. And as I began to do better on hydroxychloroquine, I got more involved with the foundation. Then I was asked to serve on the board, and I spent 8 years on the board trying to make a difference for other patients and for myself. And I spoke publicly about my experience and disease to bring awareness. I served on patient panels for pharma. I educated doctors who were taught it was a nuisance disease so that their eyes were open to understanding that Sjogren's is so much more. And I spoke with other patients to let them know they are not imagining their hardship from this disease, to keep fighting and to know that they are not alone. I began my advocacy work because I felt I had to use my voice as a patient to make changes. Now, as a CEO of the foundation, I lead the organization as a patient. I carry our collective voice to make an impact on what we know about this disease, to serve and support patients, and to educate medical providers about the truth of the disease and the terrible impact on a patient's quality of life. Now, earlier in my talk, I mentioned that the medical community predominantly believes that this disease is an old lady's disease. And when diagnosed, I wasn't old, but I was perimenopausal and within a normal range of other diagnosed patients, normal age range. And I am not unusual for those who have been diagnosed with Sjogren's, my age, my sex, and even my symptoms. And I am also not unusual that I can look back to childhood, at age 8 to be exact, and now recognize my first Sjogren's symptoms of parotid gland swelling, and I continued to have symptoms throughout childhood and as a young woman. Symptoms that we now know are common childhood Sjogren's symptoms. And I am not unusual that I have 7 specialists to care for all of my symptoms and impacted body parts. Along with my room, I certainly have top eye and oral care physicians, but also a nephrologist, an ENT, and others. And I am not unusual that I have had to alter my dreams and redefine myself around what I am able to do with this disease. But I appreciate that I have an accurate diagnosis, so I can manage today and help slow what might come tomorrow. It is estimated that more than half of people with Sjogren's are not yet diagnosed. That is over 2 million Americans. So with 4 million Americans living with Sjogren's, you can see that this is not a rare disease, but is prevalent. Imagine a man suffering extreme fatigue and GI issues. Imagine a young pregnant woman who does not know her child is at risk for fetal heart block. Imagine a child who has tremendous leg pain and gland swelling and is too tired to be with friends. And because this disease is misunderstood, they do not have a diagnosis. And with no diagnosis, they are unable to receive therapy that can help now and slow the progression of the disease. It is the patient voice that brings these stories to the forefront. We must use our voice so our disease is understood. We must amplify the stories so undiagnosed patients can get answers and help. And providers and researchers must listen in order to help the many more millions of patients to come, and help those of us who are trying to stave off future damage, worsening symptoms, and disease repercussions, such as the development of lymphoma. This need to be heard is true for all diseases and is powerfully true for Sjogren's. The patient voice gives purpose, it gives meaning. Collectively, we tell the truth about living with our disease. And we are grateful for all of those researchers and medical professionals who embrace our words and respond by working so tirelessly to make a difference. For Sjogren's, we are seeing a huge sea change in research and clinical trials. When I began my journey to diagnosis in 2000, there was one NIH research grant for systemic Sjogren's for $240,000. In 2020, there were 92 NIH research grants across 11 institutes for a total of $41.6 million. And for dry eye, there were 152 grants in 2020 for $56.7 million. And oral manifestations of Sjogren's is now at 41 grants, totaling almost $20 million. And just this past year, the foundation for the NIH included Sjogren's in the AMP-AIM research program, and the Sjogren's Foundation has a seat on the steering committee, which is extremely exciting for us. This research program brings a hope that we haven't had before because it's expected to alter what we know about Sjogren's and other autoimmune diseases. And it signals a change from siloed research to collaborative research across disciplines. This is extremely exciting, and I'm confident will make a considerable impact. To advance research in new and promising areas, the Sjogren's Foundation has our own research grant program, and last year we funded $580,000 in grants. We just announced a new special grant for dysautonomia in Sjogren's, as autonomic nervous system involvement is a key issue for patients. This was directly driven by listening to our patients. Currently, there are no therapies specifically for Sjogren's. We use therapies that have shown to help other autoimmune diseases. But now there are 20 clinical trials for systemic therapies just for Sjogren's. We anticipate the first systemic therapy will be available in the next 3 to 5 years, and there are many new therapies in clinical trial for dry eye and dry mouth. So people have been listening. The patient voice is what fuels change that can create a better future for all patients diagnosed and yet to be diagnosed. And we are thankful to those who hear us and with their talents move the baton forward to realize needed change. I know many on the call today share this vision for your own advocacy groups and the many patients you represent. You too are bringing your voices and your patients' voices to join in Research America's fight to make a difference for so many Americans. Disease turns lives and families upside down, and the impact to quality of life, earning capacity, and contribution to community is greatly diminished. Millions of people are required to make significant life trade-offs and often lose hope. And we need to put health first and strive for the innovation necessary to elucidate our understanding and management of our diseases, and to accelerate our medical and scientific knowledge to strengthen the future of our people and our country. And I applaud all of you, and I'm just so grateful to Research America for leading a charge that is so vital to all of us and for keeping hope alive for patients like me. So Mary, I thank you again for the opportunity to use my voice today and to highlight Sjogren's and the importance of the patient voice.
Well, Janet, that was so moving and so important for us all to hear. We're reminded that we're all patients. We are. But we're inspired when we hear stories like yours about the difference. First of all, the difference one person can make and the difference an organization can make. Advocacy really does work. You know, we believe that. We closely hold belief and an expectation that we have that if we all work together, as Sjogren's is a valued member of the Research America Alliance, but all of us who are part of the Alliance working together, we can assure that the patient's voice is heard and that research has every possible chance to succeed, so that you and your colleagues and all patients everywhere can look forward to solutions to what ails you, what ails us all, sooner rather than later. Thank you so much, Janet. And
Absolutely.
keep
Thank you,
leading. Keep leading,
Mary.
please. And thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for listening. And most importantly, thank you for your membership and in your engagement with us day in, day out. As I just said, you know, advocacy really does work. And we work as your partners and with and for you to serve the public's interest in finding solutions to what ails us. Please be in touch, stay in touch, be well, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much.